Like many others, I spend a frankly abysmal amount of time on TikTok, and it was one such doom scroll filled afternoon that I stumbled across a certain someone's content. If you've existed long enough on the app, you've probably seen one or two of his videos. The characteristic weird, eerie music, the uncomfortable sexual innuendos, and unceasing whining about cancel culture. Filip Zieba has amassed over 2 million followers on TikTok talking about everything from computer viruses to UFOs. Many of his videos are harmless and entirely fun, but others tend towards perpetuating misinformation or even downright lies. In this series, I will attempt to unpack Filip's content, debunking as many of his conspiracies as I see fit. My name is Miriam, and today I will be debunking TikTok's most prolific conspiracy theorist, Filip Zieba. As I said, some of Filip's content is totally harmless and honestly quite fun and entertaining. In lieu of this, I will be ignoring those videos because I don't see a need to debunk them or correct any misinformation. Some of you may be wondering why I'm doing this. Why can't I just leave Filip alone in his happy little corner wherever he lives in Canada and ignore him? First and foremost, I believe that content creators have a responsibility to their audiences. They have a responsibility to correct misinformation and not perpetuate falsehoods to them. When Filip endorses conspiracy theories or encourages disinformation towards his 2 million followers, he is helping to perpetuate an increasingly prevalent anti-science attitude that we see all over the internet and very much in the real world today. Let's take it back to 2023 when Filip was starting to post actively on TikTok. A lot of his videos from that year are a lot more genuine, in my opinion, than most of what he posts now. He seems enthusiastic about the topics he speaks about. Outer space, interesting computer viruses, you know? He makes this video on the line in Saudi Arabia, that weird city that they've been promising to build for like, what, 5-7 years at this point? He did have some videos, of course, that are more in line with his current content model, but he didn't consistently perpetuate bullshit the way that he does right now. Take this video, for instance, where he shows a map of supposed UFO sightings across the globe and begs the question why they're all concentrated in the United States. He does, however, end this video by saying that perhaps there are so many sightings in the States because there's some kind of enemy who's watching us there, so maybe he hasn't actually changed. The alien theme is pretty persistent in his content, which I totally understand. It's a big question, it always has been. But a lot of these videos don't even really need to be debunked. Like this video where he shows what is obviously a lenticular cloud and says that it might be a UFO or that it is a UFO. I love clouds. Like, I really love clouds. I can tell you, without even needing to look it up, that that is a lenticular cloud. It also gives it a 3 out of 5 rating for rarity. So, you know, Filip's not wrong to be confused. This one just kind of makes me giggle because, like, I'm not even a meteorologist. I'm just a dweeb, and even I can tell you what that is. He also made this video saying that those weird GTA videos you see next to, like, an AI voiceover of a Reddit story are supposedly a form of hypnosis. Okay, Filip, you want to subscribe, you want to leave a comment, you want to follow my channel. Filip also made this video where he talked about the doomsday clock. It was actually a genuinely informative video, kind of, mostly, but he still has that same stupid conspiracy music over it, so my brain can't separate it from the bullshit and just sorts it out entirely. Filip also made a video on the so-called singularity, or the theoretical event wherein humans and artificial intelligence will merge together. Filip claims that this event will happen in the next 20 years, a number I highly suspect that he got from this article because he uses the cover of that article in his video. A lot of these articles mention or interview a man named Kurzweil, a large proponent of the idea of the singularity. Ray has supposedly accurately predicted a bunch of things in computer science and claims that the singularity will hit by 2045. Him as a computer scientist, but this consistent habit of dating his predictions strikes me as almost like engagement bait, if you could do engagement bait in the 80s and 90s. We have no real evidence for the singularity, only theories. And as it stands, artificial intelligence is nowhere near actually being able to think. It can only regurgitate. His habit of dating his prediction not only increases his likelihood of being wrong, he was wrong about medical advancements with biotechnology, omnipresent speech control, artificial intelligence agents dominating online interactions. Remember when the metaverse tried to be a thing? But it also increases the likelihood of garnering him some type of fame, if not reputation, within the scientific community. And Ray has been in the game doing this for a while, so you have to think it's intentional, at least to a point. Anyways, Filip debunk, or bunk maybe? Number 1, done. There is no proven date for the singularity, or if it will even happen. One guy saying something does not make it a guarantee. Sorry, Filip. Philip's normal eras are so interesting to me. He posts about like this train that was supposed to be able to go hundreds of miles an hour, the Hyperloop, if you've ever heard of it, and then about the NASA Europa Clipper mission, which he says was set to land in 2037, but that number isn't right. The Clipper launched in 2024 and is set to come back in maybe 2030 or 2031. Maybe 2037 is just when Philip personally estimates it'll come back, considering how many years it took to get there. He also makes this video on Hammurabi's code, which was the first ever completely written down set of laws, and points out how kind of crazy and absurd these laws are from a modern perspective. Which is true, Hammurabi's code was pretty fucking batshit, but it's fairly unclear if these laws were followed as closely as modern people might anticipate. There's considerable evidence that individual laws were definitely enforced, but not necessarily the code like as a whole. This is more of a nitpick and less of a debunk, just because it feels like the sort of sensationalizing that a lot of people approach this era of history and this part of the world with, and that kind of irks me on a personal level. Philip posts a video titled "The CIA Knows About the End of the World" in February of 2023. I am considering this one of his first instances of spreading genuine misinformation. He says that the CIA classified this book called the Adam and Eve book, which isn't entirely true. They only classified one copy from what I can tell, which notably contains an inscription on the inside cover saying "for art from," and then the name is redacted. So a lot of people think that the reason this copy or the book was classified was because of that named inscription. It could have been for the sake of protecting an undercover agent or just some sort of intelligence that they wanted protected. There's another annotation on an inside page of the book that was also redacted from the copy the CIA released. Either way, it's not necessarily the case that they were protecting the content of the book itself, which is what Philip leads you to believe. As for the contents of the book, well, the author, Chan Thomas, was an engineer making absolutely wild predictions about the geological timeline that make little to no coherent sense. His predicted shift for the Earth's poles is more or less geologically impossible. The idea of this infamous pole shift is that there have been large, rapid changes in the Earth's rotation that cause changing climate and large geological events to occur. This isn't how things work. It's kind of hard to tell if Philip is getting the idea of his infamous pole reversal with the idea of geomagnetic reversal, a statistically random but very real tectonic event that does happen. And Philip claims that, quote, the infamous pole shift happens every 12 to 15,000 years. Philip describes his infamous pole shift, and yes, I am going to keep saying that, as a disaster that wipes out all of humanity and then we, quote, start again in the Stone Age. Where is he getting this from? The book? It was previously theorized that geomagnetic reversals were connected to extinction events, but a brief statistical analysis revealed that this wasn't really the case. A geomagnetic reversal happens more or less randomly. However, the end of Superchrons, which is a geological time period that lasts about 10,000 years, has been connected to extinction events. But the idea of a superchron being connected to extinction events is probably due to increased tectonic activity and not because of this infamous pole shift. Okay, back to Philip. Philip says that humans are supposedly the sixth advanced society to live on planet Earth, which modern North American society, we're definitely more than the sixth advanced civilization to live on planet Earth. I mean, have you seen what they were building on Machu Picchu? But humans being the sixth? Okay, Philip? Perhaps it depends on your definition of advanced. Maybe the anteaters are advanced to Philip. I don't know about his personal interests. But this is when it gets weird, because Philip brings up the London Hammer and several other pieces of pseudoscientific evidence to try and prove his point that humans as a species are somehow the sixth extremely advanced civilization to live on planet Earth. And there he says, go to part 2. Don't you love TikTok? Anyways, back to the book. He recounts the book again, and then he says that, because every major world religion has extinction events in them, written completely separately of each other, and prophesizes that they will happen again, then those extinction events will happen again? Okay, Glass, can you think of a reason or two that an ancient civilization might come up with a myth or two about an extinction event? I can. Philip does the thing where he says that all of these ancient civilizations had a story supposedly about a deity building a pyramid for them. I am avoiding Philip's ancient Egypt videos like the plague because I study ancient Egypt and I know it's going to piss me the fuck off. Philip says that not a one of these civilizations took credit for building the pyramids. No, I can't avoid it. I can't ignore it. Philip, the pyramids of Giza were primarily built by teams of both skilled and unskilled laborers who lived and worked near the pyramids during construction. Some of these people were coerced or otherwise enforced into slavery for the sake of the construction of these pyramids. We know where they slept. We know where they were buried. We know where the stone is from. We know how they cut the stone. We have seen their graffiti, their inscriptions on the insides and the outsides of the monuments they made in the honor of their kings. We know what they ate, their wages, if they had them, and their accommodations. We even know some of their names to imply that the staggering amount of evidence left behind by the people who made these incredible monuments somehow doesn't account for taking credit because they didn't say, I am Joe and I helped build the Great Pyramid of Giza, is bullshit. This reveals a frankly pathetic lack of understanding. It contributes to the frankly racist narrative that the Egyptians were incapable of building their own monuments. Interlude over, flunk number 1.5 done. Back to the book. Philip leaves out a couple of key pieces of information about our friend Thomas Chan, including the fact that he claimed to have ESP, psychic powers, clairvoyance. This book, a book that also claimed Jesus was kidnapped by aliens after the crucifixion, by the way, didn't know about that, didn't read that in the Bible, is probably the ramblings of one of the many weirdos produced by the extreme paranoia of the 1960s. This book is utterly baseless in the way that a toddler telling you that they can fly is baseless. They sure can try, but sooner or later someone will end up with a broken arm. Our old pal takes a brief break from the bullshit to talk about a nuclear war simulation that you can bet on, a space probe, and a fun fact video among other things, all characterized by his trademark, whatever this is.
Whoever invented these traps was a real psychopath. Forget having to charge your phone every night. The longest lasting battery is pyramids. Don't y'all get a little half chub when I talk about them? Cause I sure do.
In March of 2023, Philip posted about the idea of a hypothetical lost eighth continent, aka the idea of Lemuria or Mu. Lemuria was proposed by a zoologist in the 1800s and was quickly grasped onto by New Age spiritualists and occultists alike. However, it was briefly entertained as a serious theory by some scientists of the time. The idea began with British zoologist Philip Slater. He was a little bit off on his biology. Not all of the things that he was perceiving and categorizing as lemurs on the island of Madagascar actually were lemurs. But this was his thesis, that there was a hypothetical lost continent in the Indian Ocean that provided ostensibly a land bridge between Asia and Africa, allowing these lemurs to travel back and forth. So the idea of this land bridge, Lemuria, gets picked up by German eugenicist biologist Ernst Haeckel, who was also a proponent of the idea that people of separate ethnicities were actually different species of human, and not simply one species developing different forefront evolutionary traits in order to better suit the environment that they actually fully evolved in. Haeckel said that the proof for his so-called Asian hypothesis would be the land bridge and or lost continent of Lemuria. His argument was that Lemuria would have been the place original humans from which they would have traveled and migrated around the rest of the world. So this is how we get the idea of Lemuria as not only a sunken subcontinent, but the point of origin for humanity as a whole. Filip Zieba was confused about lemurs and invented Lemuria to explain his confusion. Lemuria was then picked up by Mr. Scientific Racism. Did I mention that already? Yeah, our pal Haeckel was like a huge proponent of scientific racism. He split humans into 10 different races, and in his map he lists Caucasians as the so-called top race or the most evolved. He referred to black people as savages and spoke about white people's innate right to dominate what he called inferior species. It's pretty disgusting. Haeckel's preference for scientific racism somewhat discredits his understanding of evolutionary biology, I feel. And if that weren't enough, it is widely speculated that Haeckel's fame, combined with his seemingly innate ability to make his ideas sound so snappy and easily digestible to the public, may have helped with the spread of Nazi ideology across Germany and Europe as a whole. He was also grossly grossly wrong about linguistics and specifically language development, a thing that irks me a lot because I am a linguist. It is my field of study. So Haeckel picks up on Lemuria, decides that it is his cradle of humanity as opposed to Africa. He's ignoring Africa. It's a very German biologist thing of him to do. And then maps out how the migration of early humans led to the development of his personal, incredibly racist and wrong understanding of race and ethnicity. This idea of Lemuria as the cradle of humanity was then picked up by conspiracy theorists who were unknowingly touting a white supremacist's ideas, and is now in the hands of our good friend Filip.
Both ancient Mayans and Indians, the real Indians from India, who are on opposite ends of the world and had zero communication with each other, have records of this huge landmass referred to as the continent of Mu or Lemuria in the Pacific Ocean, which had a population of over 60 million people. And the existence of Mu would be a far better explanation to how the Polynesian islands in the Pacific Ocean became populated, such as Hawaii, Fiji, and French Polynesia, than our current explanation of ancient tribes taking some rickety-ass canoes thousands of kilometers into the ocean just for fun. Really? That's the best we got?
Okay, Filip, hold on a fucking second. How on earth is the idea of a lost continent that was invented to explain someone's perception of lemurs, not even real lemurs, by the way, that's a huge thing. Slater was wrong about the fucking lemurs. A better explanation than a part of history that is not only validated by a mountain of evidence, but still actively maintained by the descendants of the people who actually did it? We know how the Hawaiian Islands were populated. Like, we still have the boats. Filip also claims that Lemuria is somehow validated by the existence of Nan Madol. I don't know why he says this. We also know what Nan Madol is. It was the capital of the cellular dynasty, an early form of organized government by the people of the Pohnpei Island. All of this is explained by literally a cursory Google search. We know how immigration amongst Micronesian and Polynesian people and their islands worked. We know where humans originated from and probably how they migrated. There were land bridges, just not a lost continent. Seafaring civilizations were incredibly advanced, with a rich understanding of the oceans surrounding their islands and a complex grasp of navigation that we struggle to replicate even today. These techniques are entirely replicable. We still have the boats! This is just embarrassing. Flunk number 3 done. I also made a video about how our Gregorian calendar is probably a little bit off. This is entirely possible. I'm not going to get into it because personally, I ascribe to the French Republican calendar. He makes a video about computer viruses, a bunch of stuff about space, blah blah blah. I wish he would just stick to this. It would be better for both of us. Then he posts a really long video about the Easter Island statues. Let's just get this over with. He spends half of the video whining about how mindless cancel culture drones got mad at him for the Lemuria video. Filip, no one was trying to cancel you. You were actively participating in historical denialism by invalidating the stories of people who have accurately and intentionally preserved their histories through oral tradition, something that is backed up by, again, mountain of physical evidence. Cannot stress this enough, we have the boats. You said that ancient Polynesians migrating from island to island was a less plausible explanation for how they got there than the idea of Lemuria. You think people aren't gonna feel disrespected by that? Really? Okay. Easter Island. Filip narrates the European discovery of Easter Island starting with Jacob Ragavin in 1722. Filip then asks if calling it Rapa Nui will be offensive too. Filip, that's the indigenous name for the place. Okay, whatever. We appreciate your cultural sensitivity, Filip. Filip uses the retelling of a version of the traditional Rapa Nui people's mythology to segue into his main question. How were the Easter Island statues moved? In this myth, the priest of, I guess, the ancestors of the Rapa Nui people has a dream/vision in which he sees this new land for his people to settle. He sees these new islands for them to migrate to. He tells the king, and then the king sends some men to go out and find these islands. The men find the island and spend some time exploring and settling it. They try to plant crops, but the crops basically turn into grass, like they grow as weeds and not sweet potatoes. Then they find a native inhabitant of the island who tells them that the island is bad. So I guess the implication here is that the island is cursed or the improper place for them to settle because their crops don't grow and they were warned against it. A bunch of violence on the island then ensues, resulting in the king's death because he made it over there at some point during the story. This is a different version of the myth than what Filip narrated. I found this version in a book source from the University of Honolulu. Mythology often has some slight variations between versions of the myth, so you know some discrepancies are to be expected. What I don't like is how Filip kind of leverages his personal retelling to paint himself as some kind of like free thinker, I guess, fighting against the constraints of mainstream history and science. Filip, there is no mainstream science or mainstream archaeology, not like you seem to think there is. There are only the processes of science and archaeology, which are ever-changing and not at all opposed to new ideas or even potential things that could uproot our understanding of the discipline, like you claim that they are. All of these disciplines are constantly shifting and changing as new evidence is uncovered, as our understanding of our world changes. Take this article about how people's brains change during the pandemic, or this one about human ancestral DNA analysis related to Otzi, or this one about a dinosaur that chirped. It chirped! Filip, scientists and archaeologists and everyone else are not unwelcome to new ideas. Like you say that they are, they're not. They are just unwelcome to claims with zero evidence to back them up beyond what is ostensibly casual speculation. You are not a warrior for truth the way that you act like you are. You're just encouraging distrust of actual scientists and science in an era when science is in actual, real, tangible danger. Just look at the United States right now. Massive research cuts. Billions of dollars stolen from publicly funded institutions. Public media left entirely unsupported by the federal government. The National Weather Service defunded and underemployed, potentially contributing to the deaths of innocent people in the recent Texas floods. The EPA left so underfunded that it's had to shut down its research division. The National Institute of Health forced to limit itself to 6 applications per year, shrinking down options for researchers who are already in trouble. You are not brave or outspoken for creating and contributing to the spread of alternative facts and misinformation. You are contributing to the downfall of science as we know it. Filip says that the statues were moved with magic. That's flunk number 4 for anyone who's keeping track. I'm done. See you next time.